So we could. I think it's on the G, but if we just strum like that. Wait, open.
Oh, on the G string?
And then it's gonna be a 3/5.
I think I'm really out of tune, actually.
Well, you get in tune with yourself, importantly. Okay, so like, it's those notes, but. Let's give it a shot.
Wait, where are you?
I'm on the G string.
So G string?
Not the first time. I've been there. On the G string.
Yeah.
Just strum it open, and then 2, 3, 5. But like, pull off.
Do just the open? And how many, like...
1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2
Alright.
and 3 and
1 and 2...
No, you just... That's not what I said. Okay, it's a 1.
I lost it.
Yeah. Alright.
What is it? 1 and 2.
Might be a different note, to be honest. I don't think it goes back. I think it's just...
That's a fire riff, though. Yeah, true. Show me something else.
That was good.
Oh, fine. All right. Yeah, I guess that's good.
You went to guitar lessons?
Nothing good guitar lessons. All right.
Get your mic, too. It's a little hot. It's a little better. There we go.
How am I sound?
Your top fell off, Chief.
How am I sounding?
You sound great.
Do I sound great?
All right, here we go.
Here we are, the Effin' Good podcast.
My name is Ken.
My name is Brett. We're back for some more.
Back for some more.
What are we talking about this week, Ken?
Today, we are talking about music, of course, we always do, but music in film.
Music and film.
Specifically, films that are about music and musicians and bands and artists that we love.
Yeah. And so I guess the through line for all of these is that there is a concert that takes place in all of them. Even Get Back, which is probably the least performance to documentary ratio of all of them, because it's like 8 hours long and the performance is really only like 30 minutes.
Yes, at the very end.
At the very end of it. But what I didn't want to do for this week is just have a recording of a concert, because there's a lot of really great ones. Like Nirvana live at the Paramount is amazing.
Yeah.
Rolling Stones Ladies and Gentlemen concert, amazing. There's a lot of really great just recordings of concerts that are incredible. Some that I really listen to more than the albums themselves. But for this one, I wanted to have one that had more of a documentary feel to it.
Okay.
And the only exception, I guess, is Stop Making Sense, because that really is one concert. But I think that it's a one-of-a-kind concert. It wasn't like a part of a tour they were on or anything like that. It's a one-time performance of that. It's like almost like a play.
It is. It's an art piece.
Yeah, so I think that because of that individual aspect of it and how it is on its own in that way, I think I felt like we could put it into this one.
Yeah, and we got to talk about it. It's one of my favorites of all time.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, it's so good.
So, what is your relationship to concert documentaries?
Well, that's an interesting question. I guess I've always, I've been into them. I'm a big movie fan, so it was kind of natural that I'd like them, but I'm trying to think one of the earliest ones that I loved was, what's it called? Led Zeppelin.
Yeah. Madison Square Garden?
At Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
It's, what is that called? Song Remains the Same.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, but they're just a unique, if you're into the artist, they're a unique way to get into them and kind of get the behind the scenes thing mixed in with the songs that you love.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree with that. I split it into kind of the way that I feel about a lot of music in general, and when I listen to music as like a fan of it, I have the duality of the familiarity and the discovery. So like for me, watching The Last Waltz Even the first time, because I was a fan of the band before I watched it for the first time. But The Last Waltz to me now is like this tremendous comfort piece. Even just listening to I listened to the album on Spotify. I prefer some of the versions from that concert to their songs, and it just provides this it is just a dopamine rush for me. I watch it, probably twice a year, 3 times a year. Probably twice a year.
Yeah. Just like The Sopranos.
Yeah, it's just like The Sopranos. No, but it really just brings me tremendous comfort, and it's like, I don't know, if I am feeling I don't know, just kind of down or anything like that, I just throw it on, and it is instantly it just makes me smile to
instant
watch it.
Dopamine rush.
It's instant dopamine rush, but then the other side of it is discovery. So for me also, watching a documentary, any kind of documentary, doesn't have to be like a concert documentary, but watching a documentary about a musician is a great way for me, and I think a lot of other people, to really get into an artist and to kind of understand the music in the context of the band or the artist. Because for me, getting into music a lot of the time requires knowing who the person is. It's hard to get into music that is maybe from a different place than I am from, or from a different it's on a different plane than I am, and for me to get to that plane, it requires me to know more about the artist, and have some context for why they're making this music, and you know what it is.
I totally agree. I was gonna say it kind of recontextualizes the artist. In a way that's one of the things I noticed when I was watching the Bob Dylan documentary we're talking about. Is that some of the, I'm not a huge fan of his earlier folkier stuff. I mean, I love it; it's classic, but it's not my top.
Right.
But when you see him perform it, he's got such conviction and such stage presence.
Yeah.
And you really understand what he's doing when you see him do it. It's kind of amazing to watch.
No, I totally agree, and I think that we're gonna get into it more. But Don't Look Back also, it shows him as a musician in a way that you might not think of Bob Dylan as a musician, especially in those early stages where it was really just him and a guitar.
Yeah.
And you just kind of see him noodling around in the green
blue
room,
stuff. Yeah.
And it's just cool.
Yeah.
And he's so natural with it, and you can, and there's
I'm just a guitar player, man.
and there's just some kind of just synchronicity to the whole thing where it's just this is so natural, and it has just such emotion behind it, even if it's just a simple blues lick. You know?
Yeah. Have you ever seen a concert film or a concert doc that you didn't like the artist before, and then you were kind of converted?
Oh, I mean, definitely. The Last Waltz, I was a fan of the band.
Yeah.
But I wasn't
Which band?
The band. I wasn't a huge fan of the band. And that really made me into a huge fan of the band, and sent me on this big kick where they were just one of my favorite bands for a long time, and I got really into them and just got really into that American roots music from The Last Waltz. I wish that I had come prepared, because there are definitely artists that I have used their documentaries as... Oh, Frank Zappa.
Okay.
Watching the Frank Zappa documentary really contextualized, because he's an artist whose music is so out there,
and he's a genius.
And he's
so
a
smart.
genius, and just it's hard to just listen to his music and be oh, this is awesome, because he's singing about why does it hurt when I pee, and
yeah.
But then when you watch this documentary, you learn where he comes from, and you learn just why he's making this music and what it is.
Yeah.
And who he is.
Yeah, and you see him in his context of his society.
Exactly.
And before we get into the Bob Dylan one, another point was you see him amongst the society of the time, especially square Great Britain, Yeah. And it's just you could see how he was just a blast of Technicolor into this world of suits and the Lord Sheriff's High Lady or something.
Yeah, it's interesting, as I think that America and England in 1965 were almost two separate places. Especially well, Bob Dylan in that documentary is also, he's not in London. Mm-hmm. He's around the country of England.
Yeah.
Which is, I think when you get out of London at that time, it becomes very square, proper British society, just as probably if you were in 1965 Missouri or something like that.
True.
Just out in the country, away from any kind of city, it would be very much just traditional American life.
Yeah. One for me was Shut Up and Play the Hits. I can't say I was a huge LCD fan. I didn't really know them at all. And then it was on Netflix. It looked cool. Looked like something I'd be into. And then I watched it and I was like, holy shit, this is like, stop making sense.
Yeah.
Like some of these songs, it sounds like Talking Heads. They had all these these musical references that I immediately loved.
Yeah, I don't know if I haven't seen that. Actually.
You haven't seen it?
No,
You gotta see it.
I really should see it.
So fucking
It sounds great.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine that for a lot of people, like watching something like Nirvana Unplugged or any of those unplugged things from the time, that was definitely something that I think MTV really did well was, kind of show artists in a more intimate setting, which makes the music more palatable to people, rather than, like it makes it so that like somebody that maybe doesn't like punk or grunge or like heavy genres like that can get into a band like Nirvana because it gives them like this new kind of frame of reference for the music they're playing.
Yeah, well, it helps you connect with the person, and that's what like the music is, and that's what an artist is, and that's what a band is, especially too. It's not just the sound; it's the image as well,
absolutely,
and the performance and the attitude.
Yeah.
What's our first one today? It's Bob Dylan.
Yeah, so we're going to "Don't Look Back" as the first. But actually, before we do that, just once again, I did want to ask. This is, I think, a unique thing of the past. We don't really have them today. Do you think that there's an artist of the last, let's say, 10 years that you would be really interested? Because we have social media now, which gives you this context of personality behind an artist. You're always seeing them behind the curtain, because it's almost just necessary for artists. So do you think that, like, a concert documentary would give a similar impact that something like The Last Waltz gave?
I don't know. I think would I like to see it for sure. I think you're right. We're way more behind the scenes than we used to be. I know artists still do it. Like they still film their tours and stuff. Like I know like Billie Eilish just filmed hers.
Yeah.
I would love to see the bands that I love now like doing it.
Yeah.
I wonder who would be like a good one, today that I would.
I think it would be. I wouldn't doubt if it's already out there, but like a Mac DeMarco tour. I've seen a lot of like very official footage of his shows that like run in a sequence of things. I just haven't seen them together on one thing.
Yeah.
But I'm sure like a Mac DeMarco tour would be really fun to see. I'd like to see like a Tame Impala tour, honestly.
Yeah.
From like like those earlier years, like 2014 Tame Impala. Mm-hmm. But I think that there's a lot of bands that would do it, and I think that today's country music would be cool with it. Charlie Crockett, I would like to see a lot as well.
I've seen some good, like, it's not like people aren't doing it. I've seen some really good ones, like, more recently, Because I love seeing the behind-the-scenes shit. Yeah. And, like, it's like when I used to watch, like, skate videos or snowboard videos, and you see them just goofing around.
Yeah.
It's, like, part of the fun of it.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get into Don't Look Back.
Don't Look Back, 1965.
1965. It's a tour of England, and this was directed by D.A. Pennebaker, and he is a funny guy, and he really adds something himself to the documentary.
Which one is he?
He is the one with the glasses.
The Bill Hader looking guy?
I don't.
Young guy?
He's a young guy. He's a young guy. He's the one that Bob Dylan is like shitting on him. At one point in the documentary, it's about 3/4 of the way through.
Not the student that he's like shitting on, like yelling at the guy who's like that annoying reporter. That's a reporter.
That's a reporter.
That's not D.A. Pennebaker.
Cut that.
No, we're leaving it in. You idiot. You dumbass.
I thought that was D.A. Pennebaker. I thought that he was like sitting aside.
The one who's talking about like what are you what do you do? What do you do in the world?
Yeah, well. The one with the glasses.
A lot of them have glasses.
I guess so.
You gotta be.
But he's like they're talking about like friendship and That's
not the filmmaker.
That's not.
No, that is a student at the university who studies science.
Why didn't I pick up on this?
They say it in the movie.
God damn.
I'm beginning to question your credentials.
Cut this. Anyways,
directed by D.A. Pennebaker. Who is in the movie?
Directed by D.A. Pennebaker, who. All right.
We don't know who it was directed by. It could have been directed by anyone. Who's to say?
No, so Bob Dylan is touring the English countryside, I guess we could say.
Yeah.
I might get some backlash from English people on that.
Bloody hell.
I don't know what they consider the countryside out there. Anything
Yeah.
to me, anything that's not really London is kind of the countryside to me.
Yeah, I would agree. Across the pond.
But yeah. So he's going on this tour, and it's right at the cusp of him going electric.
Yeah. And it sounds like some of the electric, like Maggie's Farm. You could hear recording that in it. So I guess that album already came out.
Yeah. Is Like a Rolling Stone in that? No, it's not, because the band is not with him yet.
Yeah, so this is why I get so confused with Dylan documentaries, because there's so many.
Yeah.
And there's one that shows that electric period very well with the band.
Yeah.
That has some such like great footage of like leopard skin, pillbox hat.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Well, I think it's literally a year later.
Yeah, and that's how fast he was changing then.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It is crazy. And so it was this key transition for Dylan's career. It doesn't look like he's quite amphetamine up yet.
Yeah. Well, he's coming from the beats, you know.
Yeah.
So like I feel like they might have been, but maybe not to the extent that he later was.
Yeah, and something that I thought, well, he's 25 in that, which is
really?
It's how old I am.
Yeah.
So he's 25 in that, might be even 24, or 23. He's in that range of his mid-early 20s. Mm-hmm. And something that is really interesting is just how Bob Dylan talks to people.
Yeah.
I think that we all kind of know him for sort of this like very elusive kind of interviewee. You know, he doesn't really answer questions straight.
Yeah.
But somebody that he does kind of talk to more directly are like fans.
Yes.
There's this part where he's talking to like these young girls, and they're kind of asking him just like, easy questions that if they were asked to him by a reporter, he might like try to outsmart them or, evade answering in any kind of direct way. But he's really, talking to them like honestly.
Yeah, I think he was the reason sometimes you watch it and you're like, he's kind of being a jerk to this reporter.
Yeah.
And I think what he experienced being so at the forefront of pop culture at the time was he would say things and then they would get twisted around. Mm-hmm. And you could tell the frustration of questions that were like leading him on, like being like, you sound kind of angry, in your lyrics. Like, why is that?
Yeah.
Like you could see, and he's talking with one journalist who is literally just there getting quotes for Time magazine, and he's like, "You're not even writing this." If the guy came and he got out of from behind his desk,
Yeah.
he's so funny. I feel like he was the prototype of that, like that Father John Misty type, that rock star type, or that like Lou Reed that is just
behind the glasses.
Sardonic and nasty to interviewers.
And something that I also think is interesting is that you really also see a change in journalism at this point in time, and maybe even a little bit after this point in time, where journalism was so straightforward, so like you said, trying to provoke something in the subject, and Bob Dylan is taking like simple questions, like let's say you sound very angry. Well, what do you mean by angry? Yeah. And then it's the job of the reporter to define themselves, which they're not expecting. Yeah. And
you know what it is? It's and you don't know what it is, do you, Mr. Jones? They're all Mr. Joneses out there. Yeah. And he literally turns it around on themselves, which I feel like hadn't really been done before, I guess. And one of the things I noticed too when I was talking about like that whole square society, I think it was very easy to be like I mean, everyone's like, it's easy in hindsight, but to be that first person to do, like, they're so unprepared for that kind of thing. You could just give them a ridiculous answer and they don't know how to take it at all.
Yeah, or you could just ask them a simple question. You ask them like a seemingly simple question, like, what's been the best part about the tour? And it's like, well, what do you mean by best?
What do you mean by tour?
What do you mean by tour?
We all have different definitions for these things.
And it's interesting because it's also very much like Bob Dylan's lyrical style is kind of just this breakdown of words and like, using the kind of the gray areas that like broad words can be, and like seeing them more narrowly, and being like, well, which version of the word angry are you talking about?
Well, the thing is, they really wanted to pin him down, and that's what they were frustrated with.
Exactly.
They couldn't get meaning. And the thing is, like, he's an artist. It's not his job to do that. And also, like, who says he's really in control of the meaning of a song anyway? That's kind of a Bob Dylan song. It's like absurd. It's out there. It's artistic. It's up for interpretation. And they really wanted to know what he was saying because, You know, because he's also coming from a folk tradition, which is like even his earlier songs are very much more straightforward. You know, very like Woody Guthrie like.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that these like young students they talk to him and they're like, we don't really. And so at this time, the electric stuff had started to come out. It wasn't like a Highway 61 yet, but I think that there are like more full band songs and not just like kind of like the ballad of Hollis Brown. And just like those kinds of songs. And these girls are talking to him and they're saying like, we don't really like this kind of stuff. And sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Oh yeah, that was a funny scene though when they were like, he's just like, I'm just trying to get a kick. You don't want me to have a kick?
Right, yeah, exactly. But he's talking to them so much more friendly and honestly and really like letting them at him.
Yeah.
Where like he would not let press at him in that way.
It's weird I feel like it's a learned behavior of these pop fans. They saw the Beatles. It's like the crowd, the car swarming, and they do the same thing to Dylan.
Yeah, it's funny how they do that to Dylan.
He's like, holy shit, she's on the back of the car.
Yeah. They're like,
yeah,
spinning her off the car. Yeah,
it's just this. He had that super celebrity which you see in the movie.
Yeah, and you can see it when he's in concert, like the reverence that the audience holds for him. It's not like something where it's not like a Beatles concert where you're like singing along and screaming. Or anything, or any kind of concert, you know, where people love the songs and it's like people are listening at a Dylan show. And I've been to 3 Dylan shows, and that's still how it is.
Really?
You don't, because, well,
you don't know what song it is.
Especially now, you can't sing along. It's impossible.
It's like, this could be Don't Think Twice Is Alright, or it could be the Star Spangled Banner.
Exactly. But I think even if you could sing along, you know, people wouldn't want to because you want to listen to Bob Dylan sing these songs. They're not. As much as you love to sing along by yourself, they're not sing-alongs in performance.
No, yeah, and he'd always change it up, and you could, I don't know. I thought the concert shots were really interesting, especially when like it looks so primitive. Some of the scenes when it's because it's just him up there with a mic, guitar, harmonica. And then there's no monitors. You could hear his voice is not going to the crowd. And it's just the cameraman's backstage and they're like unplugging shit. You know? They're like, try that one. And then they do something. And then finally you could hear him. And then the crowd goes wild.
And I wonder if that was Pennebaker's doing or if that, because a lot of what this seems like is like it was done not so much accidentally, but it was just kind of done on the fly.
Yeah.
There was not much planning that seemed to go into it. So I don't know if like that shot of them, because I'm sure that they didn't intentionally have the sound not working.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this awareness that Pennebaker has to be able to just catch these intimate glimpses of like what this specific time was like for Bob Dylan on this tour.
Yeah, I think that's what makes this work as a film as opposed to just a concert documentary. Mm-hmm. It's like very French New Wave, handheld, shots on the fly. That's what I love about watching this. And he gets very intimate moments where I think it seems like the people in the film kind of forget that they're being documented.
Yeah, I mean, there's this part of it where like Dylan he's playing piano and there's this cigarette burning, and he's not really playing like anything, but he's just so like seamlessly playing beautiful music, and there's this lighting that's coming through the window. You see the cigarette burning right next to him, and it's just like that is Bob Dylan to me.
Yeah, it's such an amazing shot.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. So he's talking to this student at a point, and he's talking about friendship, and he's saying
it's a student.
It's a student now. I decided. So he's talking to this student, and the student's like, "Well, don't you want to have friends?" Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And Dylan's like, asking, kind of, giving him some shit and interrogating him, and eventually he gets the friend to kind of say like, well, friends can give you something. And then Dylan's like, oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
And I don't know why this question occurred to me. I think that there was something in that conversation. But it's interesting that, like, with friendship, we don't really, like, miss our friends in the same way as, like, people might have before the internet. I mean, people had cell phones, or not cell phones, but telephones at this time. We've had cell phones for a long time now. But there was this point in time when the form of communication was a letter. If somebody had a letter. And that's what a lot of Dylan's songs, his ballads and his love songs sort of come from, is this like longing for connection and this distance between him and his lover. Like a song like Boots of Spanish Leather. this person is in Spain, and he's like, and he's saying like, when you return, and this kind of absence that we just don't really have anymore.
Yeah, it's way more romantic.
Yeah.
And it's like you could literally not see someone, like see them say goodbye, and then like they're in Spain, you'll never get in touch with them again. Yeah, I wonder. It's an interesting point too, how it might affect, I guess, in one aspect, our relationships with other people, but also coincidentally like songwriting too, where it's like, I don't know, if there's like less opportunities that we have to really like miss someone like that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like what what emotional capacity does that actually take hold on somebody?
Yeah. Well, I think it's like we still have the relationship, but it's like a little bit more shallow because you could always send a text, but like, the pain of missing them will not be as great because you're like, oh, I could always call you,
right,
mom.
And if anything, that's like expected. It's like keep in touch.
Yeah, but like, so you're not going to miss them as much. At the same time, are you going to appreciate?
In the same way, you can miss somebody by not having them next to you.
Yeah.
But if you can FaceTime someone, if you can even get on the phone and call someone.
Yeah. But it still doesn't feel the same.
No, it doesn't feel the same, of course. But I wonder if there's a different kind of emotion where it's like you are almost wondering what someone is doing.
Yeah.
Because you haven't spoken to them in 4 months, 5 months.
Yeah. It's not even possible to go back to that, too.
No.
Yeah. Which is probably a good thing, in a lot of ways. But,
So back to a bit of a funnier note about Don't Look Back, because I think that there's a lot of humor in it.
Yeah.
Especially, I just think that Bob Dylan is very funny, especially at this point in time.
Yeah.
So do you think that he likes English people?
No, definitely not.
I don't think he likes English people at all.
I think, well, they're so, they are so behind the time. Like, he's talking to that poet, and the poet's like, I'm going to turn you on to some stuff. And he's like, do you have anyone like Ginsberg here? And they don't. And, like, America was at the forefront of culture right then. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It definitely doesn't seem like he likes many people on that tour, yeah, except for, like, his close friends.
And some of the fans he likes. I think that it seems like he likes the fans. He's a little bit annoyed and disturbed by the fans in a way. Like, that scene when the girl jumps on the car, he's a little bit like, just like, what the hell?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the English are so different, too, than, like, a Bob Dylan. A guy who's, like, raised,
Yeah, I mean, he was raised in Minnesota.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That guy, that student that he's interviewing, who's kind of, like, sparring with, this guy's so annoying. When he was like, have you ever just, like, not said a word?
Yeah, I literally have this written down. It says, Bob Dylan says, do you ever just be quiet?
Yeah, it's such a good point. I feel that way about so many people. It's just...
And then the guy's like, well, he says like, well, all you're doing is like, he's like saying like you're taking shots at me or whatever like the equivalent of that was.
Yeah.
And Bob says, I just don't think you know what you're like.
Yeah.
It's like the meanest thing.
It is so mean. And I'm looking at the guy's face and he doesn't seem to register it. Like, also like that guy, he just seems like we know a person like that. Everyone has that person. He seemed like a lonely, like, annoying.
Yeah, a little nosy maybe.
Nosy, yeah. I also think both of them like arguing or like that debating. Like I think they were both having a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah, I think
if Bob Dylan didn't actually want him there, he would have not talked to him.
No, and I think
he was just like
messing
around with him. Like,
I agree, yeah. And I think that's also because I don't think that Bob Dylan is like a mean guy. I just think that he likes to fuck with
people. He's a joker.
Yeah, he's a
mischief maker.
He's a mischief maker.
Yeah.
He's a ghoul.
Perhaps, yeah.
But something that I felt was a little bit uncharacteristic of Dylan, actually, is at the end of the documentary, after the concert, they're in the car, and he says there was something special about that.
Yeah, that was interesting. He said, I feel like I just went through something.
Yeah.
Well, did he not?
But generally, Bob Dylan is not so upfront about that kind of a reaction almost. He doesn't react very much. He like meditates on a reaction and then conveys that. I think
we just don't see that part of him.
Right.
So it's interesting that they catch that moment.
They catch that moment.
And I think he was playing for the Queen at that last performance.
Oh yeah, maybe. At the I forget what it's called, but they used to have that like yearly thing.
Yeah, the Met Gala or something.
It was whatever that is. Yeah, the Met Gala.
The coronation. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, and something that I also really liked about that kind of end conversation is they said that the English call him an anarchist.
Yeah.
And he doesn't take that like in a bad way. He doesn't really take anything in a bad way. But like they're talking about anarchist, communist, and it is like being a communist here isn't such a bad thing like it is in America. It's kind of like a cool thing to be. But they called me an anarchist, which I don't think they like.
Yeah, definitely not.
And one of the reasons that I can't remember who said it to him,
but
but
his manager.
Yeah, and he says that they called him an anarchist because he doesn't really give answers or solutions to these things that he's pointing out in his music.
Well, it's like let's deconstruct it without any hope of building it back together.
Right,
Yeah.
and so do you think that in like today's music, because for me, when people write topical music now, it can feel very on the nose, very preachy, and it comes off as just cheesy, and you lose like, I guess, kind of the mystery, the real real meditation of what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But Dylan, he would just, like you said, he would deconstruct these things. He would point things out, and he wouldn't say, this is what we should do.
Yeah.
This is what you should do. That, in a way, is almost more punk.
Well, that's, I think, just art, too.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing that no one points out, like, a Francis Bacon painting and is like, what are you telling us to do with our lives? But with musicians, it's always like, if we love their music, we expect them to uphold ideals.
Right.
And be, like, thought leaders. And I think that's what Dylan got very uncomfortable with, where he's like, I'm an artist. I'm not a spokesperson for the generation.
Right.
So it's not, in my opinion, it's not art's job to show the answers, and it's like, or give a model for a way of life. Or be like simple like that.
I think so too.
And art that is kind of like propaganda.
Yeah, and it's a little lame.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could say that there's a lot of punk that really, they said like, this is our message.
Yeah, that's true.
The Clash.
But I always thought that was kind of lame when they did
well,
that.
it can be, it definitely, depending, like there are certain lyrics, which it could be another podcast that we do, is like what lyrics have not aged well.
Yeah.
In terms of like, I don't know, what they're trying to say or something like that. But yeah, no, I agree. I think that we've kind of forgotten about the interpretive aspect of music and art, and how music can be interpretive and not this like, this is what I'm saying, and if you don't feel exactly the same way, you might not like this song. Yeah.
Back to what we were saying about Bob Dylan, I don't think that he knew what he was writing about sometimes, and that doesn't matter.
No, because he was really just like, it was free flowing, it seems like. He was looking at things, and he was just writing down what he was noticing.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really like this cohesive theme to it necessarily. I mean, with some songs the times they are a changin', but he's not pointing to any particular group. He's saying, you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, saying, but like, get with the times, I guess.
Yeah.
Which in a way might, be a little bit like a preach of this, follow along.
Yeah.
But, I think that aside from, and, well, I guess.
Well, it doesn't feel preachy, I guess, in some of those songs. Like, I don't know why.
But he does. I mean, but then he's got songs like "Only a Pawn in Their Game," which is
yeah,
those like early protest songs that are much more like to the point.
Yes, those are.
But maybe then, like when people started to look to him as this thought leader, he was like, "Oh, actually, like no, I'm not that guy."
Yeah.
And now the stuff that I'm gonna write, it's just gonna be more deconstruction.
Yeah, I want to write about the sun not being yellow; it's chicken.
What?
The sun's not yellow, it's chicken. Papa's in the bathroom, he ain't got no shoes. Tombstone Blues.
Oh,
it's a lyric.
See, that's not actually a Dylan song that I love very much.
I love Tombstone Blues.
I like it, but yeah.
Proto-punk.
Proto-punk? Yeah.
Proto music video. I think maybe like one of the first. It starts off this movie with the signs.
Right. Well, that's Subterranean Homesick Blues.
Yeah, but that's at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, I thought you meant Tombstone Blues.
No. Well, they remind me of each other. It was a segue.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But now it's awkward.
But yeah, no, that's an early music video with Ginsberg and Bob Newirth.
Yeah, I forgot the other guy. That's Ginsberg. Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it and the effect of those cards. It gives me anxiety every time, and I was like, oh, that's probably intentional. Like
some of them are wrong.
Yeah, some of them are wrong, and it's like you don't know. Can he keep up? You
Yeah.
know? Is he gonna fuck it up? I always think, is he gonna fuck it up? Because he starts to. And
He starts to, but then he like catches up.
Yeah, so it always gives me so much anxiety. I think that's probably the point. You know?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, should we go on to the next one?
Sure.
Summer of Soul.
I was about to do the whole second verse of Subterranean Homesick.
maybe for a bonus episode.
I think it's impressive that I know it though. I don't think a lot of people could say that.
That is.
Pop comes Fleetfoot, face full of black suit, talking at the heat, put plants in the bed, but the phone's tapped anyway. Maggie says that many say must bust an early May. Orders from the DA. Look out, kid, don't matter what you did.
Pretty good.
Walk on tiptoes. Don't. What? No,
you sound like a real New Yorker when you say it.
Go Woody Allen.
All right, let's get back to Summer of
Woody
Soul.
Allen? There's so many.
Get out of here.
So many other New Yorkers to name.
Yeah, it's like Woody Allen. All right, Summer of Soul.
Summer of Soul.
So this took place 1 month before Woodstock.
In Harlem.
Harlem, New York.
Harlem.
So we are in July in New York City. For people that are not from New York City, what is it like to be in New York in July? Let's go.
It's like being in a giant parking lot that's filled with cars and trash and just heat, stink, so much stink.
Now that is definitely accurate, but I also...
Are you going for something more romantic than that?
Well, I think that there's definitely like many things. There's a duality to summer in New York. I think August is a little bit more of that.
Yeah.
July, there's a little bit of it's not as humid as it is.
Yeah.
But no, it can be pretty hellish in the city in the summer. But then there's also the aspect of summer in the city that is wonderful.
It's magical, yeah.
There's water on the streets at all times because fire hydrants are constantly popped off.
You pop a hydrant, man. Cool off. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful place to be. Central Park is gorgeous.
Yeah.
You know, the fountains. People are outside. It's like there's definitely an energy, a vibe in the air.
I think it's like, there's such a difference in New York. It's being here in the winter versus the summer, just when it's warm out in general, and you see people just constantly out and about. It's like you really see, there's like, you almost forget about how many people are in New York in the winter until you get on the subway or something like that.
Yeah. What do you associate with summer in New York? Do you have a memory or a thing?
To be honest, I really associate the heat.
Yeah.
And that smell of the sewer kind of hitting you in the face.
So I was right. It's like
no, you are right.
The heat and the stink are like kind of the most prominent thing. The cockroaches come out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
This was before air conditioning. Summer of Soul. Yes. It's more like Summer of Stink.
Yeah, I bet it didn't smell great at the Summer of Soul. Nor did it at Woodstock.
Yeah.
or any kind of music festival at this time. I can't imagine. I mean, like, I guess there was
Woodstock.
There was deodorant, yeah.
But not at Woodstock.
No, not at Woodstock.
Not those people.
No.
That's why Bob Dylan wasn't at Woodstock, because he said he was afraid of hippies, and I'm like, I get it.
I get it too. I mean, and
they're terrifying. They're naked. They're running around on drugs.
Well, summer of 1969 this is like the beginning of the it's the beginning of the end of the hippies.
Oh yeah, we also have Altamont that year, right?
Altamont was a few months later. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, and Give Me Shelter is a great one.
Yeah, that's another good one.
We didn't put on here.
You know why I didn't put that one on here? Just a sidebar.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a very good show. Like,
it's crazy to watch.
It's very cool. Well, it's cool for the event, obviously.
Yeah,
You've got like the Hells Angels stuff. You got the crazy crowd, but like, I don't think the Stones sound very good.
I think they were distracted. Probably,
they were they were definitely very distracted.
Danger.
I think like Mick Jagger just sounds like he's like in the middle of the song, he's just like
Yeah.
He like doesn't know what to do almost a lot of the time, and it doesn't sound great.
I think it's cool when they play Sympathy for the Devil, because that's when the guy dies. It's a weird, spooky moment. I think the shots of them being surrounded by a sea of people are crazy, and getting airlifted out,
it's wild.
It's insane.
Yeah.
People, why are we fighting? Be cool.
Yeah, Mick Jagger, just the voice of the hippies.
So bad at crowd control.
Oh my God. All right, so Summer of Soul.
Uh-huh.
I just want to say one thing before we kind of talk about the documentary itself. I would like to say just fuck Will Smith, because
where's that coming from? Dude, if you say that, he will show up at the door.
I'm
and
sure
slap you.
I'm sure he's at the door right now, getting ready to slap me. But no, that Oscars, he slapped Chris Rock.
Oh yeah.
And then I think it was 2 awards later, or maybe the following award was for Best Documentary, which ended up being Summer of Soul, which I was so excited for because I had a feeling it was going to win. I wanted it to win. I loved the documentary, and I was really excited to hear Questlove's speech and to just kind of bask in that for a moment because it was a very special documentary, and I felt like that moment was completely taken away.
Yeah, I forget what happened. Because it was overshadowed, obviously.
It was overshadowed.
It was just a weird.
I felt like you could almost hear chatter.
Yeah.
While Questlove was up
totally.
there, I remember watching it and just kind of being still processing what had just happened.
Yeah.
And there's people talking. There's people talking on the side of the stage.
Yeah.
There's all this stuff going on. Everybody's so just in shambles, and I felt like it completely took away from this. Really one of the most important documentaries of my lifetime, I feel like.
Yeah.
Just at least for what I'm interested in, it was something that I was so pleased to watch in live time and then to see it get its glory. But
Yeah, what a shame. But it was such a well done documentary. It's amazing that it got the footage. I love the look of that old footage and the color it brings to it is so amazing. And you got the sun flares.
You get those, and it's a beautiful set.
It's perfect of what you think of 1969 would look like.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you're right in New York. And
Yeah.
something that's interesting is that all of these documentaries, they don't take place anywhere near here. Where does Stop Making Sense? Is that a theater
I don't
near
know where
us?
that is.
I think that's in California.
Okay, could be.
Maybe not though.
I have no idea,
Maybe
actually.
maybe it's in the Midwest or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, so we'd have to look
I'm
into
curious.
that. But either way, it's not in New York City.
No.
This is in New York City. We are very not very. I mean, it's a long train to Harlem, but
Yeah.
a train
It's a
nonetheless.
good song name.
Long Train to Harlem.
Yeah.
Midnight Train to Georgia. Long
Yeah.
Train to Harlem. Yeah. But you go to Harlem, you can be where this event took place kind of whenever you want. It's
I
cool.
think I've walked by that giant rock.
Yeah.
And not even realized it until
No,
I saw.
it's very just historical for that reason, and close to home for us. But anyways, back to the show. The interviews I thought in this documentary were really unique. They interview a lot of attendees, which I thought was really, really cool.
That was cool. The suit guy. He's
Yeah.
like, me and my buddies, we were suit guys. And then we saw Sly. We ditched the suits. That guy was so sweet.
Yeah, and so they're interviewing these attendees, and you don't really get that insight in a lot of documentaries. Like the Woodstock documentary, they're not interviewing people that were in the crowd, seeing what they were feeling.
Yeah, and you got to do it before they die, because it was a long time ago. Mm-hmm.
No, definitely.
It's crazy. You see the way he films the interviews, really cool. Sometimes you can see the reflection of it in their eyes.
Yeah. Because they're watching it while they're being interviewed.
Yeah.
So I think it gave a little bit something extra to the interviews themselves. We were talking about the Fifth Dimension interview. And he's asking them questions about it, and they're watching this and being like, "Oh my god, I have not seen this."
Yeah, no one saw it. It's crazy.
And that's another thing that's crazy is that this was just hidden.
Yeah, why was that?
I think that it was.
Well, he said he couldn't sell it. He couldn't find.
And you can get behind the whole thing and say that it was people not wanting to be immersed in black culture.
Yeah,
And-
or at least studios not wanting to distribute and put the money behind it. Because I think people would have enjoyed it. I mean, I think the biggest artists of that time.
A lot of people would have enjoyed it. Who didn't like? Well, Stevie Wonder, I guess, he was a little bit young at the time still.
Yeah.
But
He's still never seen the footage. He might never.
There we go. But yeah, who doesn't like B.B. King?
Yeah. I saw B.B. King live once.
Really?
He did a 15-minute sing-along of You Are My Sunshine. He was really old. He was just swaying back and forth. But yeah, what a legend. What are the big names that were there?
Some of the big names: B.B. King, Stevie Wonder, Sly and the Family Stone, Sister Mahalia Jackson, an artist that I didn't know until I watched this documentary and was like, "Whoa,
Yes.
that's a crazy voice."
You know who I didn't know? The Latin musician Ray Barretto. Something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
That was awesome. That was so good.
That was awesome too. And something that they talk about, I guess, a little bit briefly, but it's sort of a theme in it, the whole thing, is that there was Spanish Harlem and then there was Black Harlem.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole mixing pot up
yeah,
there.
so it was this really, like, cool fusion of music, and there was a lot of overlap, you know, also. But the Staple Singers, Fifth Dimension, Nina Simone, and someone that was missing was Jimi Hendrix.
Hendrix, famously missing. He was like, it's weird to imagine him, because actually his music doesn't really fit into it.
It doesn't. Know. It's hard rock. It's psychedelic rock.
Yeah. And he...
But something that I was actually reading about is that leading up to this, he was touring with, or I'm not sure if he was touring or just kind of playing with Albert King.
Yeah.
You know, and just playing blues standards.
Really?
So, I mean, Hendrix had it in him, you know.
That's cool.
And it might have been cool to see him, you know, just kind of stripped back, you know, not doing the album stuff necessarily, but just maybe playing like more traditional blues stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, so something else that was interesting about this documentary is they kind of talk about the moon landing. The moon landing was also...
And they were not about it.
They were not about it.
They were like, that's some white shit, man. We need help here.
Well, and there's such validity to that statement, I feel like. It's cool that, you know, we landed on the moon, but it's like realistically, other than the 3 people that were up there...
Yeah, I never thought about it like that, so it did shed light. I can understand why I still think it's really cool.
It's really cool.
I get why people are frustrated when they're like, I don't give a shit about the moon.
Yeah, well, I think it's really...
you sent a man to a moon?
It's kind of like this, like, just real way of looking at this, and just, like, stripped back without, like, the theatrics of landing on the moon and the romanticism of landing on the moon. It really is just kind of like, well, who gives a shit? What did that do for us?
Yeah, that's hilarious. If you're actually, if you're struggling with, you know, poverty, you know, drug problems, you know, food, power, just a crumbling infrastructure, you're like, why isn't that money going to, you know,
going to like help society?
Yeah, to my building that just was set on fire, so you get the insurance from it.
So. Were you introduced to anybody in this documentary?
Totally. I knew Sly, but I've been listening to a lot of Sly, and I was like learning more about his life. Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting. They called him like pre-Prince, kind of the guy that could do everything. And he was so fun to watch, so electric. The Latin musician, I don't know if he's Latin American. Yeah. Ray, I wish I remember the name, you know, doing him a dishonor.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think. What about you?
So I was introduced to Sister Mahalia Jackson, but I was also introduced more to Sly. I knew of Sly. I knew.
Sly was.
Thank you for letting me be myself. But I didn't.
He was at Woodstock, right?
Sly was at Woodstock. You're right. Yeah, Sly was at Woodstock. Uh-huh. But it also kind of got me on a Sly kick. It also made me realize how good of a drummer Stevie Wonder is.
Oh man, that was sick.
I did not know.
That was so cool.
Before I watched this documentary.
He was so good.
I had imagined that he it wasn't beyond me that, you know, because he's just like he's a musical genius. He can play instruments. So I knew that he would be playing, able to play drums, but I did not know that at 18 years old, he would be able to just rip the drums.
Yeah. I saw him walking away from the mic. I was like, where is he going? He's being led somewhere. And then he hops behind the kit and just plays insanely in the pocket, like fast. He does that Stevie thing where like sings off to the side.
Yeah.
That was such a cool performance. His performances were probably my favorite to watch. They were so high energy. It was so good.
Yeah, and you know, something that I think you can connect this with Woodstock in is that they were both these like beautiful kind of examples of the time in a time that like people kind of embellish its beauty, I think, today. You know, they look at the hippies and they just think that it was like peace and flowers and everything, but it was really like this terrible time in a lot of ways in America. We were in between assassinations of major public figures.
Yeah.
We were at the height of the Vietnam War. It was right before the war on drugs hit.
Yeah.
There was and it was kind of these moments that were just like, it was pure, it was good, it was real peace, and it was a celebration of music, and I think that's just kind of this beautiful time, and it's summer of '69. I mean,
yeah, well, it's a complicated time. It's like, you know, summer of soul, summer of love, whatever. Summer of love was '67, right? So, but it's like that same.
But then we also got the Manson murders.
Yeah, and like you said, public, murders. It is.
Yeah, you had Martin Luther King the year before.
JFK,
RFK.
Yeah.
Malcolm X.
But that was like the social impetus behind the music. That was the reason why the music was good. That was the reason for the drugs and the hippie movement. They're all kind of like coalescing.
Yeah.
But sometimes you look through it with these like literally rose tinted glasses.
Yeah.
Like, and see just the good, the guy in the dreads and the peace sign. But
yeah.
If
you were at Summer of Soul, if you could be at Summer of Soul, how
Yeah.
old do you think that you would have wanted to be? Because something that is unique, I think, about Summer of Soul that isn't
like
unique.
70. Just an old ass man.
Something I think that is unique though about Summer of Soul that's unique about Summer of Soul to other music festivals.
Yeah.
Very kid friendly.
Yeah, there's a lot of family. It was really nice to see that.
It was a really nice like
very
family
wholesome.
outing. It was very
whole
wholesome. It wasn't like this thing that was like drug infused.
No.
It looked like maybe at most there was like some weed smoking, but
Yeah.
there really wasn't like people tripping out of their minds.
Yeah.
And like abandoning their children.
The dancing was so much better than Woodstock.
Oh yeah, I mean,
No, I think like these people that they're interviewing, they're like, talking about how they had to sneak away from their parents or like 18. One girl says she was like, this was the summer like I was free. I could see how that would be such a huge event.
Right.
If you're 18 in the city and all the biggest musicians are in Harlem, and you have all the feeling of being in the city in the summer, being young, it must be a crazy time.
it's really like it feels like a Bruce Springsteen song or something.
Yeah.
just
What
like
about
180.
you? Do you have a?
I think that I would have loved to be like, 14 years old or something.
14.
Even like 12 or like 10 or something.
Yeah.
Like to be there with my family, I
True.
think would have been amazing.
Yeah, like a nice little picnic.
I could, just like dancing around, just being like it seemed like a great place to me to just be like a young kid.
Yeah.
It seemed like a playground where there was just pure happiness everywhere.
Yeah, no, it did. I like the shot of there's a kid in the tree.
Yeah, like it seems like this
That was really
food
cool.
vendors, just like a lot of great stuff. It seemed like a carnival atmosphere almost, without like the creepy carny aspects of it.
They talk about the mayor of New York City at the time, who I didn't know much.
Yeah, I didn't know much about him
he
either.
Seemed
That was
like a really
interesting.
swell guy.
Yeah, and I think that was like a big step for him as a mayor, maybe like with the time, because they mentioned that there were like the Bronx fires.
Yeah.
And just how like awful that was, and how a lot of this concert, whether it's legacy or the possibility of it, was kind of weighing on the potential destructive outcome of it. If
Yeah.
it had been an Altamont
Oh,
where
yeah.
people...
Well,
and it almost happened.
You could imagine a scenario in that any of these festivals, I feel like at any point.
Oh,
could
yeah.
switch. You get the wrong people there.
Festivals can be really scary in that way.
I don't like big crowds.
Yeah.
I'm done with I don't go to a lot of festivals, but I think
really
the
go
last
to-
one I went to was Gov Ball. I don't
Yeah.
like crowds. Nowadays festivals are so fucking big
Yeah.
that like you can't imagine someone at Summer of Soul not being able to get out and back to their spot in like an hour.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Nowadays, like you have to commit. If you're going to be up close and see someone, or you're
God,
going to be a
prepare
half
for
mile
an hour
away.
of fucking hell.
Yeah, and I hate pushing past people.
Yeah.
I always feel like a jerk, but
Something that I
sometimes
really
you have
hate
to.
is like going. You want to get close to an artist, so you have to go like an hour early.
Yeah, see
and
that-
you're standing straight
Oh, I
up like
hate
a
it.
sardine.
I
In
think-
just heat, and
Yeah.
as a short person, you do
Yes.
not get that breeze.
No,
you
no.
don't get the breeze that comes
You're
by
getting
every
the-
once
the
in a while.
farts, just-
I am getting the fat guy sweat in front of
Yeah.
me, the girl's hair in my face.
Yes.
just like
No, it's terrible.
It's terrible.
I can't. I don't think I would go to.
we
another
sound
one.
so old.
I mean, last time I went, I must have been like 20, and I was like, I'm too old for festivals. I don't.
No, yeah.
I'm not having fun anymore.
Absolutely. Well, so I guess that leads me to sort of my next kind of transition question, which is what's the best age to be at a festival?
You got to be young. 16.
16 is great.
Yeah, 16's the best. You have to be early enough that like all this is new to you.
Yeah.
Drinking is fun.
Drinking is fun, but like also like if
You get like
these festivals, they don't let you get alcohol. It's very difficult to get alcohol even with a fake ID.
I took a bottle of sunscreen and I emptied
Right.
it out.
You got to do
and
that.
I filled it with tequila and it was just warm and I was just squirting it in my mouth.
Yeah, that's how you do it though, and that's fun.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah, no, before weed like gives you anxiety.
Yeah, it's always been like that for me. But yeah, I think that's the age of I can't imagine. I remember I wanted to go to Firefly, I can't imagine like staying at a festival, like sleeping there. It looks awful.
I've done it.
How would you think?
Well,
Firefly?
no, when I interned at the Lock and Farm Music Festival.
Oh yeah. It's like
I
jam bands and stuff.
It was like jam bands. It was August in Virginia.
Yeah, with a bunch of neo hippies.
With a bunch of Wookiees.
So
just
many
dirty Wookiees.
So many whippets were consumed.
So many whippets, just sprinklers.
Like, yo, what do you think of the show?
Yeah, but and yeah, so camping in 90 degrees, 98% humidity. It's rough.
It's like Bill Burr has a great joke about Woodstock.
Yeah.
Where he was like thinks about being there and being in the camp and like or in a tent and hearing like Jimmy in the middle of the night and be like, "Hey Jimmy, can you we're trying to go to sleep. Keep it down."
It's 5 a.m.
Yeah.
that is that imagine, but at the same time, if you're the kind of person you got to be to like love a festival is like you just got to be up for anything, and like if you're getting woken up by a guitar solo, good.
But that's 16, that's that age.
That's 16.
That's also why I love this festival, where I could see myself being there. It's like you could imagine, I want to go to a bodega and get like a bite and then come back. You know, you don't have to make it a whole weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Know? What was a highlight for you from Summer of Soul?
I think that one of the most emotional moment, or a really cool moment to watch, was Mavis Staples singing with the other Staple, I don't know, the older one who's
the Staple singers,
who's like, I don't know if I could do this, and then Mavis Staples just kills it.
Oh my god!
And then she's like next to her, and then she's giving her the mic.
Yeah, and she was so nervous. She talks about like being so nervous for that, and not knowing if she could deliver.
Yeah, I think Stevie Wonder's performances were crazy. They were so good. Yeah, I think those were the big ones, and then Nina was incredible. What did you think? Your top.
One of my moments. A big highlight for me was Sly doing Everyday People. That was like a really, he's one of those singers that just there's so much behind his voice that like when he's just singing, I don't know if it's conviction or just emotion or what it is, but it brings everything out of you.
Yeah.
I loved the Fifth Dimension doing Aquarius, Let the Sun Shine In.
They were so funny.
They were so happy.
They were very happy.
And you see how happy the people are and into it they are.
Yeah.
And and I don't know their names, but I guess like the main woman singer, she is just smiling throughout the whole thing.
She was gorgeous.
They're all just
Too, and she was like, as an older woman, you could tell she was still good looking.
And they're all just smiling and happy and like dancing and singing. And it was
well,
incredible.
they talk about how the black audience before that didn't really accept them as much, and so that was a big moment for them.
And they were like, they were dying for that kind of actually acceptance.
They do come out with that boy band energy of like everyone's waving.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, definitely.
It is fun, but their enthusiasm is definitely there. That I haven't listened to much of their music, but that refrain, "Let the sun shine," that's a good. I feel like I knew that one before.
Yeah,
but never knew it was them.
Yeah. So that was a highlight. Stevie was a highlight. B.B. King was awesome.
B.B. King was really cool.
There was one other one though. Oh well, and Nina Simone. I think that Revolution was like an awesome song that she did. Like, say you wanna, or I was just about to say the Beatles Revolution.
Wow.
But no, when she sings Revolution, I think that it's like, and her performance of Four Women also, which is like an extremely. I'd say it was a darker. Nina Simone is a dark artist.
I remember I watched the documentary about Nina, and I know at that point of her career, she was very active politically and kind of getting like the tough to work with, attribute.
Well, I think that she had some pretty severe mental illness.
Yeah, and I think that's around that time.
Yeah,
but yeah, her voice is haunting.
It's haunting, but it was like hauntingly beautiful. But there was also kind of this stillness about it where the rest of the thing was kind of a celebration.
Yeah.
And Nina does get into these celebrations, like if I knew how it would feel to be free, like songs like that are very like gospel based, but then she has these darker songs that are haunting and hauntingly beautiful, but still there is this like, it's this there's the Dylan thing where like people are not, celebrating with it, they're listening.
Yeah. She also has it similar to Dylan, a voice that's very expressive and can be really beautiful, but also very raspy and like pointed and jagged.
Yeah.
You know, it's a cool style.
Yeah. All right. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Got The Last Waltz.
The Last Waltz, directed by Marty Scorsese.
But yeah,
Wow. Well, Last Waltz is really cool.
what is The Last Waltz to you?
I remember I watched it. I only heard about it last, I don't know, within 10 years ago. It's not something I grew up with.
Yeah.
I watched it with my mom the first time, and I was just blown away by all the performers and the fact that I had never seen it before.
Yeah.
It was so amazing.
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
and a lot of these people, they're really like, they're at the height. You know, they might not be at like necessarily the peak, but they're still at the height of their career.
Yeah.
Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, the band, Bob Dylan. You know, Bob Dylan had just released, he's probably released
Van
Desire.
Morrison?
Van Morrison, yeah. I mean, like, I'm not a huge Van Morrison
He's still
fan.
huge, though.
But he was huge, and I'm sure that there were a lot of really... I'm not so familiar with his discography, but I bet that at that time he was still releasing great music.
Yeah. How'd you hear about The Last Waltz?
Sam and Shay.
Okay, yeah. Shout out.
Shout out to my cousins. But yeah, no, I watched it. I think I watched it senior year of high school.
Yeah.
And it was profound.
Yeah. I mean, it's so many great artists that we love. So
I get high watching it.
Yeah.
Like, and not in like a stoned way. Like
Yeah.
I get like this adrenaline
Yeah.
of like dopamine and everything. But yeah, Thanksgiving 1976.
Yeah. I think it is really cool the way that they filmed the whole idea of that dinner before is a great idea.
Yeah.
You know.
And yeah, so for me, like, this is the greatest Thanksgiving movie. You know, like if there's like a holiday, if you know, like there's like Christmas movies and kind of like holiday movies, I would like put this in that category and say like if you're someone on Christmas break or something like that,
Yeah.
like throw on The Last Waltz.
Toss it on.
Yeah,
See what happens.
If you've got your whole family over, you know, cousins and everything like that, just put it on.
It's good.
And blast it.
It's like 3 hours long, so you can just pop in and out.
Yeah,
You know.
there's just tremendous music, and it has such a feeling to it that is warm and just it makes you feel like you're drinking apple cider.
Yeah, I can only imagine the backstage hangs were just incredible.
Unbelievable.
You know, just you're hanging out with incredible people.
Yeah. What was your favorite performance from it?
Dude, I think Robbie Robertson is so good in it.
Yeah.
He's so fun to watch on guitar, and he's got so much energy. It makes me like you see him more as a front man than you've ever seen him, even though he does not sometimes just leave on home singing, you know, he's awesome. I'm trying to think favorite performance. Give me a sec.
You want me to start?
Yeah, go first.
So I've got a few.
Okay.
My favorite non-band song is "Helpless" by Neil Young.
Yeah, that's got all the singers, right? They all come up for that one?
It doesn't have that's I Shall Be Released. That's when everybody comes out, but it's got Joni Mitchell singing backup.
Yeah.
And she's not even on stage. She's like behind a curtain basically.
Well, did she not get announced yet, maybe?
Maybe not. I can't remember why that was, but she's just behind.
Women should be neither seen nor heard.
But yeah, she's just behind there like giving like amazing backup vocals for a song that like or actually, well, I believe there was a tour around these years where she would kind of tour with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Yeah.
And they would do this song and she would backup sing with it. But it's really incredible for that. But then just to have the whole band singing Helpless with Neil Young, which is to me like it's a very like cathartic, emotional song to me.
Yeah.
And the chorus, you know, helpless, 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 helpless.
Yeah.
And you have like Rick Danko, who is like really one of my favorite underrated singers of all time.
Rick Danko's awesome.
He's got like Levon Helm has obviously an amazing voice, but it's more known because he's like the voice of the band in a way.
Yeah.
But like during a song like The Wait, when Rick Danko comes in for his verse of it is just like it's.
Well, he sounds so authentic.
He sounds like he's just trying his best, and it's amazing.
I was gonna say some of my favorite shots from the movie are when they're just sitting around playing pool.
Yeah.
They look so cool. Like Danko especially, he just looks like a badass.
Yeah.
It looks like you'd picture Canadian musicians hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and it's funny that they're almost like such an American band with one American in it.
Yeah. I know Bob Dylan really liked Levon Helm, and he said you see this quote? It was like he called him like one of the last great.
Yeah,
you know,
I shared that.
like
Yeah.
Okay, I got it from you.
Yeah. No, and then is Paul Butterfield also in that?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I think he might be in that, Paul Butterfield. I think that he plays harmonica
Really.
in the performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love Paul Butterfield.
Right.
I think one of the coolest ones is Screaming Jay Hawkins or
No, Ronnie Hawkins.
Ronnie Hawkins.
Screaming Jay Hawkins. Very different guy.
Who's Screaming Jay Hawkins?
Screaming Jay Hawkins does I Put a Spell on You.
Yes.
Like, ooh.
Yeah. Well, I wish he was there too.
That would have been great,
awesome.
yeah.
Ronnie Hawkins, awesome. And I love the whole vibe, that whole New Orleans kind of vibe he brings to it.
Definitely.
And he's a guy that they started out with. What song
he's not from New Orleans. That's Dr. John.
Damn it.
Ronnie Hawkins, I believe, is Canadian.
Is he also Canadian?
I believe
that
he's
would make sense
Canadian.
why they started out together.
Yeah.
Was Dr. John in it or no?
Dr. John wasn't. He does
Okay.
Such a Night.
Saturday night. Saturday night.
Such a Night.
I thought it was Saturday
No,
night.
it's Such a Night.
Saturday night.
No, it's
I thought he was
Such
just
a
saying it
Night.
with like a Cajun flair.
Nope.
Okay.
All right. Well, yeah. But my favorite band performances
Yeah.
are The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down.
That's a good one, yeah.
Which is preceded by maybe my favorite like backstage moment, which is it's Robbie, Rick, and Richard Manuel doing Old Time Religion, which is like this very traditional, just kind of like I think it's like a Christian song.
Yeah.
And Rick is playing like a fiddle.
Yeah.
And they're just like, give me that old time religion. And then at the end of it, Robbie just goes, it's not like it used to be. And then it just cuts into the horns that they have on Dixie Down.
Yeah.
It's like, da-na-na.
Yeah.
And then just leave on.
That's such a powerful.
It is tight.
Yeah, he's so tight as a drummer.
It is crazy.
I mean, Cripple Creek is a classic from that.
Yeah.
That's just like
That's
the
like
definitive
and
version.
they open up with that.
Yeah.
Like,
Bone out now. What does Dylan play?
Dylan plays Forever Young and I Shall Be Released. And also like Babe Won't You Let Me Follow You Down, which was like an earlier song that they kind of electrify.
Yeah.
But then my other band favorite song, which has like, this might be like my favorite. It Makes No Difference. That's a Rick Danko lead vocal. With Garth Hudson doing like.
Garth was keys and
he was like
auxiliary.
Like they were all kind of multi instrumentalists, but he was like the auxiliary multi instrumentalist, kind of like conductor in a way of this band, and he just delivers the most beautiful saxophone solo that I think like exists.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything better.
Yeah, they are a crazy band, you know.
Like just individually talented.
Yeah.
The way like. It's almost like it's not obviously it's nothing like AI or something like that, but it's almost like if you could pair just like the best possible musicians together to make a band.
Yeah.
Because they started out as a backing band.
Yeah.
And then they basically just recruited Bob Dylan to like help them write some songs. Mm-hmm. And he did, and then Robbie Robertson wrote some good ones. You know, they all kind of just wrote these great songs, but they perform them so, like maybe better than any band ever.
Yeah, well, that's why they are the band, and that's why they are what holds the whole thing together. They're the backing band for all these artists.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, they're unbelievable. So, yeah, and something else that I think is very cool about this is like, you know, we mentioned it's directed by Scorsese, and seeing Scorsese in it is like it's an experience
young
in itself.
Scores. Yeah.
Seeing Marty Scorsese, just, you know, like you see him in shots where they're not using his camera, and then you see him like in the back of the stage, kind of like, you know, like peering out.
And
you know,
Marty had shot Woodstock. He was one of the key filmers on that.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, so he had already experience with it. I love Martin Scorsese because his career is so identified and closely related to rock music and punk music in New York City. But he clearly has a passion for live music and live shows.
Yeah, and I mean, and Robbie Robertson would score his movies basically after The Last Waltz.
Yeah.
He did King of Comedy, like in a lot of other ones, but King
I didn't
of Comedy.
know that. That's cool.
Yeah. So I think like seeing Scorsese and seeing him talk to the band is so fun and funny because Scorsese is such a curious guy.
Yeah, he's a weird guy. He's small and talks fast.
He's small. He talks fast. He's almost nebbishy in a way.
Yeah.
But like I guess it's like the Italian version of
Yeah,
that.
he's a little cooked up. He's going fast.
Yeah, but there's this one scene Rick Danko is presenting a song that he wrote, actually, that he would release solo. It's called Sip the Wine. And I wish that... And this must be like a rough cut of it, because this is not the version that he released. But I wish that he had released this version, because it's just this beautiful song, and he's just kind of playing it in the studio, just being like, yeah, this is like what I've been working on. And Marty's just like asking him about it, and they're just walking through the hallways of like the studio.
Yeah.
And it's just this really intimate moment that you don't get from Scorsese on his own projects, of course, because he's always directing.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah.
Until Taxi Driver, when he's,
yeah,
little cameos.
It's a great cameo,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of just, you just see the master at work a little bit.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
He did a good like late era Stones concert.
Yeah, he did Shine a Light.
Yeah, Shine a Light's really cool.
Yeah, that's a good one. I kind of wish that they did something maybe a little earlier. It's a good one, but I mean, once they start needing like the backup vocalists to kind of like replace Mick Jagger a little bit in those Stones
but late era
concerts.
Stones is still Stones.
It's still Stones.
An era of Stones.
I mean, like honestly, until Charlie Watts died, it was the Stones.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Wyman hasn't been in the band for a little while, but
Is Charlie wearing red? He's going to ruin my outfit.
ruin my outfit. My God.